Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. And today, Jocelyn and I bring you an interview from a special guest. He is renowned global leader in success and performance coaching with decades-long behavioral neuroscience research. He has 4 best-selling books, 2 of them being New York Times bestsellers, and he's been featured in 11 different movies like The Secret and been on shows like Larry King and Anderson Cooper. Now he's currently the CEO of myneurogym.com, whose mission is to help individuals strengthen their mindset so they can achieve their goals and dreams faster and easier than ever before. Let's get into this interview with John Assaraf. So John, welcome to this episode. And so just to kind of create the framework for the people listening, I'm so ready to have you on today. You know, couples come to us for a result in their marriage. And that result might be connection and understanding. And then people have listened to this podcast and come to us because they really believe in the simplicity of the skills and tools that we teach, which are usually communication or conflict resolution focused, as the actions to get them there. But I'm so excited to take this to the next layer with someone of your caliber that has been doing this for this long, so we can get to that layer about the perception, the mindset, and the attitude, and why that is important to drive that action with the tools they learn from us, and then finally get the result, and what really stops people. So that's kind of the context I wanted to paint today. So you can go wherever you want from this. But the first question would be, give us the basics there, right? Like maybe that's even new for people. Like I know I want a result, I usually take an action, but what does my mindset and attitude really have to do with that?
Sure. So I think first and foremost, what's really important to understand as a behavioral neuroscience researcher, understanding why we do what we do, right? What are we really looking for in our behaviors? And why don't we do the things we know we should do and can do? But to put a little frame around this all is most people don't understand that every neurosecond, little second by second, we're not seeing the world as it is. We are seeing the world, that we are creating the reality of our world based on what we believe to be true about ourselves, based on what we have learned to expect, and based on our identity. So my identity will drive my behaviors. My beliefs will drive my behaviors. And then obviously my skills, that I take action on will give me the results that I want. And the challenge we have with skills is a lot of people, me included, just did not learn the right skills in a relationship. I had, for example, great skills in communicating with my business partners, and we had regular meetings and expectations and goals and a vision we were working on together. But in my first 2 failed marriages, it was like, are we like, what are we supposed to do? And my mother and father were the example that I had growing up, and they got married at a very young age, after the Great Depression, not enough money, not enough communication skills, no rituals that were supportive of each other. It was kind of like, 18, 21 years old, get married, have kids, have a family. And by the way, I don't like you.
Oh, man.
you know, so we based on how our brain creates these maps of reality, we call it, we then mimic the map of reality that we were taught. And so how many parents have a great relationship? How many parents teach their children communication skills? How many parents teach their children about budgeting? How many parents teach their children about discussions about sex and that it's so, how many parents do that? Mm-hmm. It's like not many. Why? Because their parents didn't do that. So we go through life with these blinders on, we like try to figure it out, and we model in most cases, terrible examples. So the terrible example becomes our model of reality, and then we repeat that model of reality because that's the way our brain recreates, what we know versus what is possible.
So it's funny you say that because so even couples that we meet with or they come to our workshops, they'll even say, I know when I do blank, let's say when I shut down, walk out from an argument, that it isn't productive, my relationship, but I just feels like my go-to.
Of
So
course.
could you explain for people why would we do something that we know even doesn't produce the result we want?
Yeah. Um, so part of this might help. About 18 years ago, I discovered that I was addicted to alcohol.
Mm.
And I've been addicted to sugar most of my life. And I stopped drinking alcohol 15 years ago for good, and I stopped eating refined sugar. But prior to that, I could have a drink and I know this, I shouldn't be having a drink because one is too many and 10's not enough. But what most people don't understand is there's something called automaticity. And automaticity simply means that whatever you make or whatever habit you develop, your brain automates to conserve energy, and then it just overrides your logical brain. And this is part of our subconscious conditioning, right? So you can know that saying this or not saying this to your partner is going to shut them down or you down, but you still, it comes out of your mouth, or you just like shut down and you don't know how to override that. And it is really all about understanding that we all of us, every human brain functionally works the same, right? So think about what I just said. Functionally, every brain works the same. 110 billion humans have walked on Earth, and yes, our brain has evolved. But let's say modern human, right? Every brain functionally works the same, like every electric car functionally works the same, and every gas car functionally works the same. Every brain functionally works the same. So think about this for just a moment. Were you born with any beliefs about anything?
Mm.
No, not one belief. Were you born with any habits? Zero. Were you born with any fears? Zero. Were you born with a self-image or self-worth or self-esteem or identity? Zero, 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 zero. So if we go back to how did your brain, my brain, and everybody else's brain, develop to have beliefs and a self-image and expectations, um, we grew up in an environment with parents, one parent, two parents, it doesn't matter, teachers, grandparents, dogs, cats, TV, books, whatever it is. And our brain, fired our neurons and then wired our brain to have these certain beliefs and expectations. So from the age of 0 to about 13, our brain is on high alert, creating this fundamental map, like you're creating a map of a new city. Our brain is creating a map of what reality is. And then from 13 on, we're in the reinforcement years of what we learned is the map.
Mm.
So once that neuroplasticity switch, it's called, turns off, the reinforcement switch turns on. And then we read books and we see that person has a great relationship, and my girlfriend and my sister and my husband and my wife, my friend has got a great relationship, but why not me? And then we say, well, I wonder what they're doing. And we learn what they're doing, but then it doesn't translate to us doing it. Why? Because there's a part of our brain called the hippocampus that gathers all the new information. And when we see something we want or we hear something we should do, I was like, oh my God, that's good. I want to do that. I want to have that relationship. I want to have the rewards, the love that they share, the way she looks at him, the way he treats her. I want that. And we get this little rush of dopamine. But the reason it doesn't translate to us actually having it is because change of behavior requires a consistency of change.
Mm.
And once we do something one time, it pretty much does not create a neural pattern to override the 10, 20, 30, 40 years of the old patterns. So it's like software in the brain. You don't just go software change, right? You need to recode, rewire, and we have to refire and rewire. And so what we know from the neuroscience research is on average, it takes 66 days to create a new pattern that then starts to create the automatic habits of implementing that pattern. So I always teach people, I said, first, let's develop the right habits. Then the right habits will develop you.
Yes. I think if I can jump in, I'm resonating with everything. And, you know, in our show, we talk a lot about the things we've worked through and overcome. We experienced completely different upbringing. So what you were just talking about, what was modeled, what he was modeled couldn't be further than what was modeled to me. And that was a lot of what we had to discuss and reconcile and understand what was influencing us. And people here our triumph now, right? We're almost married 10 years, but we'd been doing self-development years before that. He's cheering us on. And if people truly knew that if I did not decide to work on myself, the messages and all the data points I was given as a kid, I would have been in a really probably a terrible relationship. I would have been with someone who was untrustworthy, toxic conflict cycles, because that was a match to my identity. You brought that up, right? Like that was what my identity believed was possible. And so I mean, there's a million questions I could think to ask you, but what is that? The identity. Say more about that. Like, because there was a choice I made, and I want to give people more language of like, no, I am worthy of more, or I'm capable of more. So can you speak to that identity and that choice and how that could play a role in deciding to change patterns?
Sure. So when somebody doesn't believe they are worthy of more, right? It has to do with their identity, self-worth, self-esteem. If we go back to, where what I suggested earlier is none of us were born with a self-worth, self-image, self-esteem. What happened either through teachers, siblings, parents, we learn fear, right? Be afraid of the snake, or be afraid of him or her, or flying or jumping out of a plane. The exact same way we learn about our self-image and self-worth. And if somebody has, shared with us that, will never amount to much, you don't deserve X, Y, or Z, or we see how a spouse, a father treating his wife, or a wife treating her husband, that becomes our norm, and that becomes what we expect. And once we have this expectation point and this belief, the belief that we have about ourselves is the lens by which our brain filters out all other options.
Oh, that's so good.
So if you think about, if I have a radio, all right, and I tune into, let's say, 95.1, that's jazz. I'm tuning into that. That's what I like. All the other possibilities of music is here, but my brain's tuning into the jazz that I like. Well, our brain tunes into the evidence for my beliefs. So it reaffirms. That's why I said we actually create our reality second by second. Because our brain doesn't like see what's out there and create a new map every second. It actually conserves energy. So we are looking for confirmation. It's called confirmation biases, right? For what we believe and what our self-image expects. So the question then becomes, well, can I upgrade my self-image to match this new being that I want to be and this new relationship that I want? And this is where the work that I've done around Innercise helps, right? Because if it's a function of refiring to rewire, your neural circuits or your brain patterns, then how do we start to see ourselves differently so that we have a higher expectation point? We start to believe we're worthy of it. We start to show up with a new identity, and then we elicit the behavior from our partner and from, a soulmate, whatever, that we would like to have. So no differently than, a thermostat in a room is set at a certain temperature. And any deviation, hot air comes in, air goes on. Cold air comes in, heat goes on. We maintain our own relationship homeostasis based on our programming.
Ooh, okay.
Well, let that sit with the audience for a second, right? Because then I was thinking, yeah, if I'm a partner, I'm going to do the identity work. I can start to really see the future that I want to create with my current partner, start to believe that. And I think we've seen from couples, they'll start to do that. It's like they can vision cast a new future, they can learn some tools. And then, like you mentioned, if you want to reprogram, it also partly comes with repetition. So you have to see a level of change in your action that can reinforce the new belief system, right? I think update that thermostat. But I did want to talk about grace. And I think that comes up a lot for us with couples.
She's ruined a lot of relationships.
Great.
Grace. Yeah. Yeah, we might have to tie that into your Frankenstein and your Einstein pictures back there. But, we'll work with a couple and they feel really optimistic. And I think they can visualize that future. And then we give them some tools and they go about 2 weeks. But then we see there's a level of frustration. My partner hasn't been doing what we talked about on our sessions, right? So you start to see this gap between maybe what you expected you both would do, and now it's like not matching up. So right in my mind, it's like, what's the level of grace we need to have for ourselves? Because if it's going to take 66 days, I mean, is that the main thing? Like, I shouldn't even be judging myself for my partner until at least 66 days. How do I have grace for myself to make the change and not get it right every time, and then allow for that consistency to build into the new belief, and even have that grace for my partner then too.
So, we're talking about relationships, and I have, over here, and I know people probably are listening can't see, but I have something called my Exceptional Life Blueprint that I'm looking at with about 50 pages. And right over here, I have like my top goals for this year. And I have a vision that's already written out for the vision that is, a perfectly written vision. Then I have goals. But when we're looking at changing our behaviors, mine, yours, ours, right, together, what a lot of people do not discuss in advance is what are the counter strategies if I fall off my commitments to you? How will we resolve that? How would you like me to communicate with you that you're not following what we agreed to, or I'm not following what we agreed to? So let's just hold that for just a moment, and let's go to a work environment. And you've got yourself an employee and a manager, and the employee's getting paid to do X, Y, or Z, to work, whatever it is, 9 to 5, 8 to 4, whatever it is. And for the amount of money I'm paying you, I'm going to get you to do this, this, and that, which will end up in this result that we've agreed to. And we understand how that works. And if you have a really good manager, she might say to you, hey, listen, you're off target. You didn't get accomplished, what you said you're going to get accomplished this week. What has to happen in order for us to get this done? So I know that you're big on communication, which is where it all starts. But why not start with counter strategies in advance with permission schedules? So, for example, I agree I'm going to do this and this and this by such and such and such a time. And in the event I do not, we're going to do these daily or weekly check-ins to make sure, just like an airplane or a captain of a ship is always checking where she is on the course to the destination. You have these regular check-ins with accountability, right? And then, we put in measures to make sure that we're both on the course to achieve the vision and the goal that we have.
Can I jump in right there? Because I'm resonating with it, because Aaron and I have participated in a lot of like leadership development. And so we love accountability from ourselves for sure. And I wouldn't say, I don't want to misrepresent it. It's not that we love being held accountable from each other, but it's something we've created in our culture of marriage, is that we don't just see it as a personal attack. It is, hey, we have each other's backs. We both know what we want. So all that was to say, the way you're positioning it, we resonate with, right? Like, let's have countermeasures. That's why we're big on, like, we have a family meeting check-in each week. Whenever a couple's working with us on conflict, one of the things we have them do is create agreements for times of conflict.
Right.
And then if one of them starts to break one, for example, let's say they have an agreement of no name calling, and let's say the person's triggered, and so they call a name, we teach them to have some kind of a gentle reminder. Hey, let's remember our agreements. Now, my question to you is, for you, it's like you're so open to that accountability. It's so just empowering, it seems like, for you. For the listener, if maybe they're newer into self-development, could be the husband, could be the wife, if for them they have resistance to that, what would your coaching be?
Sure. So let's understand that in addition to the relationship goal that we have and the vision we have for our partnership, who do you want to be as a person? Like, who do you want to be as a person? Do you want to be, accountable so that you can be accountable to you first? Like,
Mm.
what's the character that you want to be and have? And how will that character not only help you in our relationship, how will it help you if we have kids or we have kids? How will it help you at work? How will it help you with your career? How to help you with your health? If you are accountable to you, then you will be accountable to me.
Mm.
And then we can practice. Listen, when we critique up, it's for my good, not to put me down.
Mm.
Right. And so if we have an agreement as a partnership, like my partnerships, right? Like, I want to lift you up. Like, all of my team members, my employees, I work for them to lift them up.
Mm.
They don't work for me. My goal is to lift them up. And if I see something that they may not see or they may not be doing or following through on, it's kind of like, hey, Aaron, I just noticed something that I think may help you. Is it okay if I share it with you? Because I don't think you're aware of it. And in the spirit of the vision, the goals that you've shared with me about what you want to achieve that helps us achieve our vision goals in our company, are you okay if I share that with you? Yeah, okay. So I noticed that you missed your target. I noticed that you did this when we had agreed you wouldn't. And so I just want to make you aware of that. And what help do you need from me to help course correct?
I was going to tie it together to really, get practical. I'd imagine, given your extensive background and years, and even years together with your wife, I know you mentioned 25 years together. Do you guys have any particular rituals that go along with accountability, or just kind of help keep in place, whether it's the vision, whether it is the accountability? What do you and your wife do?
Around November every year, we start our individual goals. Here's what I want to achieve in the next 12 months, starting like January. And she invests some time on her own. And I am much more of a goal setter than she is. She's not into personal development. She's not into reading the books I read. She's not into going to events. She freaking hates them. Okay. And she's okay with what I do. So we're independent and interdependent, but she does have goals. And so we understand our goals for the coming year individually and then collectively. We take time to say, where do we want to travel? What kind of charities do we want to support? And then I have all of mine written down. She does not. And like, I'm cool with that. However, a ritual that we do have that has been a life-changing game changer. Every Saturday morning, wherever we are in the world, we have our 7:30 a.m. meeting. And we grab a cup of coffee. And 1 week I lead, 1 week she leads. And here's how it goes. Hey, honey, how you doing this morning? Great. And we always wake up with a hug, a kiss. I bring her hot water. That's one of the rituals we have at lunchtime, including today. I was sitting outside with her. She makes me a love bowl of my organic vegetables and some protein. So she has some of those responses. So we have our roles very, very clearly defined in our relationship. So I'm responsible for certain things. She's responsible for certain things. We are responsible for certain things. So that's part one. But every Saturday morning, honey, what's happening with your sisters? Everybody okay? Is there anything I need to know about? What's happening with your brother? what's happening with your friends, what's happening in your world. Like we talk all the time. We talk all the time. But on Saturday morning, it's our unrushed time to connect and really discuss anything. Are you sexually satisfied right now? And is there anything you need from me? Is there anything, and I'm asking her about her. She just will let me know. I'm good. No, I'm not. Is there anything I need to know financially? Are you on your budget? You good with your budget? Etc. So I ask her, and then she asks me. And we go back and forth, back and forth. We talk about health, wealth, relationship, career, business, charity, fun, experiences, travel coming up, children, everything. There's not one thing that we miss. And sometimes it's like, no, everything's okay, like last week, and we just move on to the next one. And it takes us about 30 minutes. 1 week I lead, 1 week she leads.
We love that because that's very much aligned with what we teach couples about having a weekly check-in and having that open communication. Now, I can imagine some listeners hearing that and being like, love the concept. I would love that kind of open communication. But in there, either triggering topics can come up because everyone's triggered by different topics, but also for some, receiving any what can seem like negative feedback, even though really if we could just look at it as just feedback, it doesn't have to be negative, but it still can trigger in people sometimes things like it brings up it's never good enough, or oh, this means if you're saying that, then I must not be the partner for you, or that might be more of an extreme answer, but people get defensive or they get triggered by that feedback. What have you shifted in your beliefs to be so receptive to your partner?
Well, first and foremost, it's not what they're saying that's the issue. I'll give you an example. I want everybody to imagine right now that you're listening to this. I don't know if you're driving, be careful with what I'm about to do because it might affect you. But imagine if you all of a sudden took your attention off of my voice. I said, I want you to imagine that wherever you're at right now, you look to the left or right of you and you see a 10-foot python that's about 250 pounds, and it's kind of like slithering towards you and wants to wrap itself around you and squeeze you to death. Now, for some people, they go, oh, I want to get my camera and take a selfie of it. Other people just put their foot on the brake because they felt this jolt, okay, of adrenaline or cortisol because it activates the fear center in their brain. So the fact that I said, the word snake and python and squeezing them, for some people had zero effect. But for other people, the word snake or spider or jumping out of a plane or flying elicits this emotion, the energy that's in motion, that it feels awful. It's like, oh, no, I don't want that. Well, when somebody says anything to you, it's not about what they're saying to you. So the meaning you have learned to give what they're saying to you or how they are saying it to you will automatically trigger certain circuits in your brain that will release the neurochemicals that cause you to feel a certain way. So it's never about what he or she is saying. So I could come on here right now and say, you two are just absolute idiots. What the hell are you doing, doing this podcast right now, Aaron, Jocelyn, Freeman, experts, like do something smarter with your life. Now, you could just sit there and go, oh, John, that's a really interesting perspective. You could respond, or you go, God, what an asshole he is. Right? So is it what I've said, or is it your confidence level with who you are and what you do?
I love that point. That is so good. And I think a lot about in conflict, one of the most damaging things we can do is label our partner or call them names. And I'd love if you would have like a neuroscience reason why. Like, what does starting to label each other in conflict, what does it even do to the way you see each other?
Well, listen, the way I see you is the way I will treat you. Yes. Right? So am I really seeing you, or am I seeing a former girlfriend or boyfriend or mother or father? Did I learn how to communicate like this? What if we go back for just a little bit and said, like, hey, we're boyfriend, we're girlfriend, we're husband, we're wife. Regardless of what's happened in the past, regardless of what's happening right now, regardless of what we saw in our parents or didn't see, regardless of that, why don't we jointly create a vision that we would like to like lift ourselves to? Well, let's create a vision together. And so, if you could wave a magic wand and create like a vision for our relationship, what would it be? Well, it would be, respectful. We co-create. We make decisions together. We have independence. We speak nicely to ourselves. We lift each other up. We have honesty in our communication. We can criticize up. And like if you could just wave this magic wand, what would you love to create that maybe your parents didn't have or you've never had? But if you had a partner, you could create it together. And so if we started off with that vision of that, then we backed off from that and said, well, what would you need to believe about you or about me in order for that to be true and for that to be a reality instead of something we hope and pray and dream? What would you need to believe? Well, I'd have to believe that you're this and you're that, and I'd have to believe that I'm this and I'm that. And what are we going to do if we don't believe that's true right now?
Mm.
Well, if we recall where we started this, a belief is nothing more than a reinforced pattern that we learned from our environment, parents, teachers, TV, radio, or brother, sister, friends, whatever the case is, that got reinforced. But as soon as we say, well, what would you need to believe? What would I need to believe? And then we say, well, how do we make a belief a reality?
Mm.
Here we go back to Innercise, right? You strengthen your muscles, with let's say doing weights or walking or Pilates or yoga, and you repeat and you add resistance or you add time or complexity. Well, it's going to take us a little bit of time to start believing these new things. And up until then, we might revert back to the name calling. We might revert back to the old habits, and that's okay. We're going to give each other, as you mentioned, Aaron, some grace. And what we're going to do is, let's say we are mindful that we are doing it. Let's catch ourselves and go, oh, sorry, I just caught myself, and we understand the science of change is the science of consistent new actions over time. The science of change is the science of new actions, new thoughts, new beliefs, new behaviors consistently over time. And let's say we commit. And I always tell my students, don't get into my programs unless you're committing to 100 days to fail forward. Right? And now we're going to use all of the tools around mindful awareness, about self-talk regulation, around being aware of my emotions and then managing the emotions until I master them versus them being automatic and master me. So we are, everybody says, we're creatures of habit, right? Well, habits create automatic reactions. So there's a trigger that causes a reaction. And there's nothing wrong with that. Now, if I'm aware of the trigger and I'm aware of the reaction, and I deliberately and consciously choose that I want to evolve myself, I want to be able to feel the trigger. I want to manage, through mindful awareness, the response. Now I'm back in control versus my father or mother lashing out, or whatever example I had as a child. So what if I just said, hey, listen, for the next 100 days, we're just going to be clumsy at this. Let's just be clumsy at this. And I'm okay if you are, and you're okay if I am. And let's just do this together. And if we could do it in 60 days, awesome. But it's going to take us about 30 days of you reminding me and me reminding you. And all we're doing is putting a light on, not to put you down. It's to make you aware.
Yes. And that atmosphere, that energy dynamic between a couple of, we both want the same thing. We agreed on, to your point, our vision, our goals for our relationship. Let's say it's even a communication goal and a conflict goal that they're working on. Those are two big ones that couples work through. It's having the atmosphere of we both have each other's backs and we want to get better together. Rather than what couples can get in this dynamic is just, you know what, you're the problem. And here, you know what, here's an excuse for my behavior. And isn't that just futile? Like, we have no control over the other person. So would you maybe even just walk people through, like, what would be an Innercise activity, exercise someone could take if they were wanting to remove the excuses in their relationship, no longer wanting to say, well, I wouldn't yell at you in conflict if you didn't do this, or I wouldn't resort to calling you a name if you wouldn't do that. What would be an Innercise activity to just remove those excuses and break their own patterns?
Yeah, so first and foremost, as soon as we, blame, project to the other person, the only reason I do this is because you do this, there's a gap right there. And maybe one of the things that we should all say, the only reason I do this is because this is what I have learned to do. Now I am responsible and I'm not deflecting onto you. And so the first thing is to say, help me catch my habitual pattern. That may be destructive, maybe disempowering, maybe negative. Let me help you catch that. Part one. Part two. Let's all understand that whenever I believe that I behave this way or don't, I shut down, it's because of what you are doing. You are not being responsible. You have just learned how to shut down and behave in a certain way with the stimuli that you're receiving. And if you don't believe that, ask yourself a question. Does everybody react the same way you do? Does everybody use the same language patterns you do when the stimuli, like the snake analogy, is there? And the answer is no, which means that it cannot be about what he does or she does. Now, let's say a partner does not want to change. Then you could still be responsible as to whether you stay there or not.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Either way, you're empowered now. Yeah. But it's so easy to rationalize. And if we take the word rationalize just means we tell ourselves rational lies.
Wow.
Him, her, when you, when she, when they. It's the finger pointed out versus saying, hey, when I receive this stimuli, my habitual pattern is to call names, is to reject, is to depress or suppress versus express. And so what we want to do is just understand that if we stop pointing the finger outward and saying the stimuli is causing me to react at the highest level of my training or habits.
So good.
And if I want a better relationship and I hurt my partner's feelings, then this relationship will not work. And if that's our goal, if our goal is for the relationship not to work, then let's keep the same strategies, right? But this is why we say, like, are we willing, like we have the vision, great. Do we have some goals? Yes. Then are we willing to change the strategies that we have to achieve the goal that we want, to achieve the vision of being happy, healthy, wealthy, in a great relationship? And if you don't want the same vision, you don't have the right partner, and that's okay. If you don't have the same goals, if you're not prepared to put in the same amount of work, it's okay. I mean, it's okay. But I always tell people, I said, make sure if you're either going to split up or get divorced, that you can look in the mirror on your own and ask yourself this question. Am I doing, none of what it takes to make it work, some of what it takes to make it work, most of what it takes to make it work, or I'm doing everything it takes to make it work?
Yeah.
If you're not doing everything it takes to make it work, here's what I'm going to tell you. No matter what, your relationship will suffer. Your job will suffer. Your health will suffer. Your business will suffer. You're not willing to do everything it takes. So if you want, to say, when people ask you, how's your relationship? Well, it's about 75% good. If that's what you want, if that's your vision, then just get comfortable accepting 25%. It's terrible. But here's what I can guarantee. When a person and or a couple and or a team or a family is prepared to say, let's do everything we can do individually and collectively, there's no way on this blue planet you will not succeed.
So good.
Because we know all the how to. But if you're not prepared, if you want to win an Olympic gold in your relationship, you have to practice in private what you want to get praised for in public.
Yes.
But you make the decision. This is where you are responsible. If you're not willing to do whatever it takes, just tell your partner, I am not willing to do whatever it takes for me or for you. And then as a partner, then he or she could say, great, well, I want to opt out. Like, I don't want to be in this relationship, or I'm going for gold. I want to have a spectacular relationship.
That's so great. And with kind of closing out here, I was really thinking about not just the role, but almost like the definition of positive and negative emotion. Because as you were talking, it's kind of like I can imagine myself taking certain actions or reactions, or because of the meaning that I'm giving to a stimuli or what I'm watching my partner do, right? That elicits positive or negative emotion, and then that seems to really drive those behaviors or patterns. So this may end up needing to be a longer topic, but I wanted to at least address, how for you do you define positive and negative emotion?
Great. I'll answer that in 1 second, but I also want to answer what Jocelyn asked earlier, and that is, what's an Innercise to do?
Oh, yes.
So I want to come back to that and say, listen, what if every day when you woke up, let's say you had a little visualization session on the day you're going to have. So I'm going to have a healthy day, an energetic day, a happy day, a positive, empowered day. And I'm going to start looking for all the amazing things that my partner, whoever, does every day. Right? I'm going to look for 20 ways to lift her up. I'm going to look for 10 ways to lift him up today, and to find all the things I notice, from the sparkle in his eye to the beautiful smile she has, to the taking care of the kids or taking care of herself. I'm going to notice all the good things. And I'm going to see those in advance, and how I'm going to feel when I catch her or him behaving or doing those things. And I'm going to look for all the ways to lift him or her up. Just saw that first thing in the morning, you would do what I call is prime your brain, find the good. And when you prime your brain to find the good, and you teach your brain not to find the bad, not to find the things to put them down on, and then maybe you learn a little bit of self-control, is if I catch myself wanting to say something that like can knock them off, I'm just going to be quiet. I'm just going to just go, let it go. I'm just going to say, let it go. And practice that for 1 minute around your relationship every morning when you wake up. Commit to doing that for 30 days. I guarantee you one thing, and only one thing will happen. Your relationship will get better.
Yeah. So true.
Part one. Part two, to the question you asked, Aaron, well, the question was, there are no negative or positive emotions. There are just emotions. Some empower us, some do not. The emotion of fear, right, can be used as fuel. The emotion of disgust can be used to protect. The emotion of sadness can elicit, soothing help, or can elicit this quiet solitude within us. The emotion of happiness, right, is a move toward. The emotion of love is a move towards emotion. So there aren't good or bad emotions. Emotions just are. The question I like to ask, right, and emotions are different than feelings. Emotions are triggered in the subconscious mind based on the meaning that we have learned to give things. They release neurochemicals. It causes a feeling. feelings either cause us to move forward and towards what we want, to stay, in our place, or to retract for safety. Right? And so the question we have to ask ourselves is the emotion or feeling that I have right now, is that helping me move towards and achieve what I want? Or is it causing me to be cautious or move away? So there's nothing wrong with emotions or feelings. Now, that's part one. Part two is, do you know how to be aware of and regulate your own emotions and feelings?
It's one of the top skills that we work with on couples, because
That's right.
it is intertwined into all of your interactions. It's absolutely intertwined into conflict, the ability to connect. And so I'm so glad you hit on that. And I hope that everyone listening, that highlights that if you want to improve anything in your relationship, it's improving how well you regulate your emotions. And so, I mean, there's a million more questions. We could go hours, I'm sure. You guys listening can tell there's just so much wisdom and knowledge, and I'm sure people are going to be hungry for more to learn. Okay, I want to know more from him. How do I break patterns within myself? How do I change beliefs? How do I, expand my identity? And so, what is the best resource from
Sure.
you that people should go to? And then tell people, the link for that and the name of that. And we're going to also link that in the show notes.
So I wrote a book called Innercise, The New Science to Unlock Your Brain's Hidden Power, and it became an Amazon #1 bestseller, to really teach people how to use this $100 billion brain better, to have the relationship with themselves better, the relationship with others better, to upgrade their identity and beliefs and self-image and self-worth and self-confidence and certainty. So they can pick up the book on Amazon if they like. But there's also an app called the Innercise app. And there's over 600 Innercises using visualization, mindfulness, meditation, positive, perfectly written affirmations. And then there's also a section, with world-renowned brain and experts on how do you eliminate self-sabotage? How do you stop procrastinating? How do you develop empowering habits? How do you use the latest in neuroscience to just become the best version of you in a relationship for yourself? And so they can go to innercise.com or the Innercise in the App Store. And then follow me on social media, because I'm always sharing stuff. The thing that's really important, right, is that with the right mindset and the right skill set and the right behaviors, we can achieve just about whatever we want. So we could take that relationship that we want to have. And if we become the best version of ourselves in communication, in believing that we are wonderful human beings, and then we learn, some of the skills that we need, we can upgrade everything we need to upgrade to become a better version of us. And who doesn't want to be a better version of themselves?
Yeah.
Right. And these are just things that we can learn. And you two, Aaron and Jocelyn, you're doing such a phenomenal job in giving people all the tools they need, the foundational tools and the tools that they need, for people who are serious about having a great relationship. And it's the most, as you know, listen, no doubt it can be frustrating and challenging at times, like everything. But it also can be one of the best gifts you can give yourself, is to become the best version of yourself and help your partner be the best version, as well. The richness in that is like, who doesn't want to be a great parent to watch their children, grow up and be amazing human beings and adults?
Absolutely.
So just be prepared to do the work, to learn, apply, to be clumsy beginners, and then practice perfectly makes perfect practice. Right? So it's not practice makes perfect, practice makes permanent. But when we are learning new skills, when we are learning some inner sizes, we just need to remain consistent, right? So consistency is the key.
It really is. And that is so aligned with what we talk to couples about, is you can't make a change for one day in your relationship and be like, it didn't work. It's like, okay, that's day one. Like, I love how you said it's 66 days to start to really see habits stick. And so I hope everyone runs to get your book. I mean, go to Amazon, order it. We'll link it in the show notes. It's just a must because this self-development is such a big piece of the relationship evolving, getting better, staying fulfilling. And so thank you for being on our podcast today, sharing your wisdom. And I know people will be diving into your social media and your book. And thank you again for your time.
Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Jocelyn. Appreciate you both.